Shiriishi is a shy and forgettable loser who is ignored by all his classmates, until one day when the school's most popular girl develops a crush on him and will do anything to have his sausage. It all starts with Shiriishi explaining how his face was edited into his class yearbook photo because people couldn't see him in it, even though he was there. Just then, a teacher walks into the class to give him a handout and fails to notice that he's standing right behind him. After taking it, he walks towards his seat when a boy notices him and acts like he's seen a ghost, all because his social presence is lower than your chance of getting laid. Shiriishi then explains how nobody notices him because he's always lurking in the background like an NPC, except for this cutie named Kubo, who is attracted to mediocre things. She asks him what he's doing and then sees him searching for how to become irrelevant, as if he needs help with that. She takes a picture on her phone for later, and Shiriishi begs him to delete it so that his millions and millions of non-existent fans don't see it. As she calmly sits down beside him, Shiriishi's inner monologue starts gushing over how Kubo excels in studies and sports alike, so while she's smoke and mirrors, he's lost in the flames. Just then, she adds salt to his wound by reminding him that he's just an MP who would never get anyone's attention. She then looks at him all cute and asks him to stand up so he can prove her point, but Shiriishi refuses to do so because he's all bricked up. However, Kubo shows him the picture she took earlier and gently asks him to reevaluate his choices. Eventually, Shiriishi agrees and stands up a little, then a little more, and then on top of his chair, and since no one notices, he decides to strike an embarrassing pose. Just then, his teacher asks him to sit down, and everyone looks at him in shock, much to his shame. After class, Kubo laughs at his expense and asks if he's upset, but he calmly says he isn't. Kubo then suggests they do it again, looks at him like she wants to feast on his popsicle, and then says he was the main character of his class today. Shiriishi looks away and quietly says she's the villain in his story, but Kubo leans towards his face and gently says that she is, in fact, the heroine in his story. She asks the guy to say it out loud, but Shiriishi would actually die from the cringe if he did. She then starts poking his cheek for no reason until her friends reminds her it's time for their next class. After she leaves, the guy buries his face in the desk and wonders if he's finally gonna get his V-card swiped. Later, Kubo walks home with her friends Kudo and Tara, and when Tara says she saw Shiriishi twice, Kudo believes she'll now have good luck for the entire day. Kubo believes they are exaggerating, but Kudo reveals there are posters of him being rarer than an Illustrator Pikachu card. In the previous year, no one saw the guy once, even though he attended all classes, so the girls believe he can cosplay as your dad, who's never to be seen. See.
Emotional, damn it!
While they're yapping, Kubo thinks to himself how she never had any trouble seeing the guy. Once Shiriishi returns home, he copes by believing that everyone has a purpose, and his purpose is to read Attack on Titan manga repeatedly and ship Heroine with Historia. The next day, Kubo walks up to him with a dark aura like she caught him gooning to her feet pics and starts pouting to grab his attention. He asks if he did something to upset her, which upsets her even more. Shiriishi gives her milk to calm her down, and she asks him to remember what he did this morning. The guy starts going through his day, starting from buying food from the market and walking to school. There he sees Kubo with Kudo, and she waves at him, but he quickly realizes she was waving at Tara, who was standing behind him. He then walked to the class, which brings him to the present. Since he failed to figure things out, Kubo decides to punish him by sitting on his lap, since no one notices him anyway. Jishi then looks back at him with glittery eyes, and Shiriishi starts twitching because he's worried he's gonna spill milk on her. Kubo tells him that everyone will begin to see him if he makes noise, and that won't be good for his rep, so he better sit in silence. Shiriishi complies, noticing that she's soft and smells good, but as she looks back again, she notices that his brain has short-circuited from hiding the crime scene in his pants. Kubo finds it cute and starts playing with his cheeks. She then tells him to wave back at her next time and decides to forgive him, but when Shiriishi asks why she was mad in the first place, she whispers that it's a secret. The guy gets so flustered that he runs away and hides below the classroom window, and when he asks why she's treating him like a toy, she replies that it'll spoil the fun as she tells him. Later, she asks why he always asks questions at the end of the class, and the guy says it's his way of making sure the teacher notices his presence. Kubo suggests he tries answering one of the teacher's questions for a change, but the guy says no. However, when the teacher asks a question, Kubo raises her hand and says Shiriishi knows the answer. Turns out he doesn't know the answer either, so Kubo points at her notes to help him out. After he answers the question, Kubo gently asks him to help her in her future if she needs help too. She then says she doesn't know the answer to question 5, and much to her bad luck, the teacher again asks her to answer that question. She then turns to Shiriishi, who luckily knows the answer and saves her neck. After class, she's about to ask him for his contact info, but gets distracted when her friends show up. When she looks back at Shiriishi, the guy is already long gone. At home, he reads another manga and goons to the thought of playing Toss 6 one day. On the weekend, Kubo shows up while he's sitting in the park and asks what he's doing here. He explains how he came to buy a video game when he saw a guy handing out free tissues. He wanted some as well, but he couldn't get the guy's attention even after acting like an average New Yorker. In the end, he decided to use his voice and got the tissues, and he felt so accomplished after that he forgot to buy the video game. Just then, Kubo takes a picture of him on her phone, and her camera fails to focus on his face. She believes he needs to be much closer for it to work and opens her front camera, but it still does not work. She then gets even closer to him until eventually his face is detected, prompting her to take a selfie. After that, she asks for his contact info and then suggests they hang out more. Seeing her get this close, he asks if he plans on pulling something dumb again, but she calmly walks away. She then looks at the picture she took and says she's already been spoiled enough for today. At night, Kubo sends him the selfie, and he believes he's never going to receive another message from her. Just then, she texts that they should hang out more often, and the guy wonders how he should reply. On the other hand, Kubo is waiting for his reply when she runs into her sister Akina, who notices that she is quite happy about something. Kubo brushes it off and walks to the bathroom, and it turns out that Shiriishi agreed to hang out with her. Later in class, Shiriishi feels sleepy in class and decides to take a nap since no one notices him anyway. He looks to his side to see what Kubo is doing and discovers she's already dozed off. Kubo suddenly wakes up, stretches her arms, and looks at him all cute, which sends him into a panic. After class, Shiriishi takes a lap in the gym class, but when he runs in a group, his partner loses track of him, so he has to announce it to get his attention. As he catches his breath in the halls, Kubo shows up and greets him with a smile. Shiriishi immediately backs off because he smells like dog water, but Kubo gets closer and starts sniffing him, saying that it does not bother her. Shiriishi backs off again, but this time his heart starts doing jumping jacks in his chest. When she leaves, Shiriishi realizes she smells even better after gym class, and how a ponytail makes her look even better. He says if he were to get a new hairstyle, it'll only make him look like a different brand of forgettable loser. Just then, Kubo returns with a wipe and explains that these ones will make his body smell like flowers. Shiriishi takes the pack and begins wiping, and Kubo watches him closely, stating that now they smell the same. Kubo then leaves with her friends, but not before eyeing Shiriishi like he's packing a Drake down there. As she returns to class, Kudo and Tara notice that she's smiling a lot and ask her what she is up to. Tara then asks her to give her the wipe, but Kubo quickly snatches it away and refuses to share. Kudo asks if her happiness is somehow related to the wipes, and even though she denies it, the plot gods know she's gonna goon to their smell tonight. On the weekend, Shiriishi decides to buy a new video game from the store, but the automatic door won't open for him. Kubo happens to pass by and notices him trying to get the door open, only to realize it's a push-button door. Just then, a couple enters the store, but Shiriishi doesn't go after them. Kubo feels bad for him and suddenly places her hand on his, prompting the door to open. The guy gets startled and backs off, and later explains how automatic doors don't always open for him. They head inside, where Shiriishi finally gets his hands on the game he wants, and Kubo starts gushing over seeing him so hyped. When the guy speaks highly of the story, Kubo decides to buy the manga so she can have something to talk about with him. However, the store doesn't have the first volume, which makes her visibly sad. Just then, she realizes she can borrow it from him, which makes her really happy. As they leave the store, Kubo asks him to bring it tomorrow, but when she learns they have to walk in the same direction, she suggests going over to his place. Shiriishi starts sweating because he thinks she's going to go vacuum clean her on his sausage. But she merely wants the manga. At his doorstep, he gives her the first 3 volumes, and Kubo reveals she lives 5 minutes walk from here. She then asks what time he leaves for school before leaving, mainly because she wants to adjust her timings to run into him tomorrow. The next day, Kubo wakes up early and gets ready for school. She then goes through various hairstyles to see which one will make Shiriishi want to give her back shots,
Yeah, boy.
and then decides to use her sister's mist. She then runs into Akina in the living room, and while they have breakfast together, she asks if there's a special event happening in school. Kubo says no, but Akina smells her expensive mist in her hair and asks if she's trying to give her V-card away. Kubo gets nervous and decides to leave, but Akina starts teasing her even more, much to her frustration. Kubo then waits at the corner of the street until she sees Shiriishi walking towards her. She then takes a deep breath and pops out of the corner to say hi. The guy freezes for a second, but then goes back to normal and the two start walking together. Since they have some time on their hands, Kubo suggests they sit in a park and chat a little, and Shiriishi complies. She then notices the store where he buys lunch and asks if he likes sweet things since he bought an Anpan sweet roll the other day. While they continue talking, Kudo and Tara show up and ask why she's here before them. Kubo says she woke up early and ran into Shiriishi by chance, and they notice him only after she says his name. The guy then walks away without saying much, and the girls believe they'll have good luck now since they spotted him. The day continues as usual for Shiriishi, with no one speaking to him or joining him for lunch. Then, as he walks home, he tries to make way for a pedestrian, but a speeding car splashes water all over him. He continues to walk as an invisible person among the crowd until Kubo pokes him in the back and jokes about him getting splashed. She then walks home with him, and the two part ways at his doorstep. Shiriishi then misplaces the key to the front door and begins searching, and Kubo returns once she notices his predicament. The guy then texts his mother, but she says she won't be home for another 2 hours. Shiriishi decides to wash up at the park, but Kubo is worried he'll get a cold and suggests he come over to her place instead. Once there, she guides him to the bathroom, but he accidentally gets a glimpse of her plot armor, which embarrasses her. She then leaves to get him a tracksuit and places it on the washing machine outside the bathroom while he cleans up inside. After a few minutes, he leaves the bathroom wearing the tracksuit and finds her waiting outside. He tells her that his mother is home now, but Kubo suggests he dries his hair before leaving or he might catch a cold. After that, Shiriishi leaves, but both of them are visibly embarrassed about what happened. The next day, they run into each other on the stairs, and Shiriishi returns the tracksuit he borrowed. After some chit-chat, Kubo asks how tall he is, and he says 163 centimeters, just 3 centimeters above Kubo's height. She then stands on a stair step and says the 15-centimeter height difference is ideal for a couple. After that, she begins patting his head, and the guy can't understand why she's acting so weird today. She asks if he wishes he were taller, and when he says yes, she jumps down the steps and says she prefers his current height before walking away. As the winter rolls in, the class reaches the end of the semester, and Shiriishi immediately leaves the class after submitting his answer sheet. As Tara and Kudo join Kubo, she begins wondering what he's up to. Later, a random woman finds a kid playing alone in the park, but when she asks the kid where his mom is, she quickly finds that Shiriishi is watching over the boy. He explains that this boy is his little brother Sita, and the woman apologizes before leaving. He then gets back on the bench and watches his brother play. Just then, Kubo shows up and comments that he must be adopted because Sita looks nothing like him. Shiriishi says it's because Sita looks like their mom, while he looks like the electrician who clapped his mother. Sita then comes to say hi to her and develops a liking for her drink, prompting Kubo to give him the entire bottle. After taking a sip out of the bottle, Sita gives it back to Kubo, who drinks from it, making the boy really happy. Sita then asks Shiriishi to take a sip, but he refuses, which makes him tear up. Noticing them, Shiriishi pretends to drink from the bottle, which makes him happy again. As Sita leaves, Kubo asks Shiriishi why he didn't drink from the bottle, asking if he was embarrassed about having an indirect kiss with her. Shiriishi keeps his poker face on and starts walking around so his body stays warm, and Kubo finds his excuses cute. At home, the guy reads manga and gets so hooked that he heads to the bookstore to get himself a poster. Once there, he finds some goon material but hesitates to buy it, worrying that someone might see him with it. Eventually, the people disperse, which allows him to approach the counter. As he holds a corn magazine in his hand, he musters up the courage to open it, thinking how he came so far from home that no one will recognize him here. Just then, Kubo's sister Akina sneaks up on him and tells him that it's too early to be gunning to Tude Wafis. He hides it behind his back and says he was just putting it back in his place, then hands the magazine to Akina. She, however, jokes that she expected him to leave the pages sticky. Just then, he wonders how someone other than Kubo was able to spot him, only to learn that she has the same last name. The guy then buys another magazine and leaves the store, but Akina spots that he accidentally left his student ID behind. That night, Akina returns home and barges into Kubo's room, Asking her to return the ID, Kubo notices that it belongs to Shiriishi, and Akina says that the boy was reading Gunning to girls with big jugs. After she leaves the room, Kubo feels sad about being flatter than Sakura. The next day, Kubo shows him his ID, and the guy says he dropped it somewhere yesterday. Kubo says his sister found it at a bookstore and quietly asks if he's into busty mommies with enormous melons. Shiriishi knows there's no way Kubo saw him yesterday, so he finally puts 2 and 2 together and realizes the woman he ran into is Kubo's sister. Shiriishi's whole reputation is on the line, but when he tries to explain himself, Kubo returns his ID and leaves the classroom, much to his embarrassment. At night, Akina mentions that Christmas is almost here, and Kubo notices how the second semester went by in a flash. Akina then says she and her friends are getting together for a sausage party on Christmas, but Kubo herself has no such plans. The next day in class, the teacher asks for Shiriishi in the staff room, but no one seems to find him in class. Just then, Kubo approaches him and tells him to head to the staff room. After he leaves, Kubo decides to eavesdrop on the other students making plans for the holidays until he returns. Once he arrives, she reminds him of the promise he made to hang out more with her and asks if he's free. Shiriishi says any day is fine, so she asks him to meet her in front of the train station on the next Saturday. Looking at the calendar, Shiriishi realizes that the day is Christmas Day, which makes him nervous. On that day, he arrives 30 minutes early and waits for her. Kubo arrives 10 minutes earlier as well, and Shiriishi says he just got here. She then grabs his hand and notices they're cold, which shows he's been waiting for her for a while. She then hands him the gift she got, and since Shiriishi didn't get him anything, she suggests he buy one right now. Shiriishi runs off immediately to get her something, and Kubo is super excited because she didn't expect him to. After 15 minutes, he returns with a pair of mittens, explaining that he picked these because her hands would have gone cold waiting for him to take the hint and clap her already. Realizing he put a lot of thought into it, Kubo is extremely happy as she put them on. However, she feels bad because she got him a shirt that says main character. She apologizes for the lame gift, but Shiriishi is happy because the last time Santa visited him, his mother gave birth to Sita. As the spring rolls in, Shiriishi finds himself babysitting Sita, who's imitating the superhero on Tev. After hours of watching over him, he finds it amazing how the little guy still isn't bored. His mother then suggests he take Sita out to touch some grass, so he hesitantly takes him to the park. His brother continues to imitate the superhero, so Shiriishi decides to show him why no one talks to him in school. Sita finds his imitation super cool and asks him to do it again, and when Shiriishi does so, he notices that Kubo is standing in the distance, recording him on her phone. A few days later, Shiriishi shows up wearing socks of different lengths, but no one notices it even during gym class. Just then, Kubo and her friends walk in and talk about the upcoming Valentine's Day, and the guy mentions how she would never make such a silly mistake. Soon after, Kubo walks up to him and asks why he was staring at her, but the guy brushes it off. During class, he notices that Kubo is acting a little strange and wonders what's wrong with her. Later, the teacher asks Kubo to put the printout on the wall, and she asks Shiriishi's help because she's a shoddy. The guy complies with her request, but since he doesn't want her to notice his socks, he pulls a chair instead. However, Kubo gets on her knees and pulls up his hem, asking him not to be ashamed of his sock situation. She then gets on top of the chair to fix the printout, and the guy notices that she's wearing tights today, which may be the reason why she was acting strangely. She then explains that her socks were taking too long to dry, which is why she decided to wear tights. She also calls him a naughty boy for staring at her legs, which sends the guy into a panic. Moving on, she gets on the chair again and starts putting printouts on the notice board. Then she asks him if he's ever had a drink from the store where you get a cup and fill it yourself. When he says yes, she jumps off the chair and says she wants to have it with him with a bright smile on her face. After school, they head to the store where she starts acting like a baby who just got their favorite toy. Shiriishi is unable to pick a drink for himself, so she suggests he get a hot chocolate while she gets a matcha latte so they can switch halfway. Thinking she's toying with him, he backs off and says he doesn't want a drink, but she insists he come with her in case she runs into any trouble. At the counter, she asks for a matcha latte, but when the counter guy asks which size, she desperately looks at Shiriishi for guidance. Shiriishi tells her to get a regular one, and she orders it along with a meat bun for him. With the cup in her hand, she heads to the machine and is visibly eager to get the latte. She then presses the button, gets her drink, and happily walks home with Shiriishi. On the way, she asks if he wants to taste it too, but Shiriishi says no because he doesn't want to fall for her tricks. Kubo doesn't want to back down and asks for a bite of his meat bun, so he decides to tear off a piece with his hands and give it to her. Before he can do so, she leans in and takes a bite, freezing the guy in one spot. She then looks at him with a smile and tells him to eat it before it gets cold. After that, she goes off on her way, leaving the meat bun in his hand. However, a couple of girls run into Shiriishi, and he accidentally drops it on the floor. On Valentine's Day, boys try different tricks to get their crush's attention, while Shiriishi sits alone in silence because he knows he's gonna die a virgin like Annie and her viewers. He then recalls that once on Valentine's Day, their teacher passed chocolates around but forgot him because he was invisible. Just then, he notices a pack of chocolates in his desk and starts to panic because he thinks someone left them there by accident. He then begins to wonder if it wasn't a mistake and if Kubo intentionally left them here. He then bangs his head on the table to shake the thought off, and Kubo comes running in to make sure he's okay. Shiriishi is startled at first, but then decides to ask her if she left chocolates in his desk. However, he backs off at the last second and asks her about the weather. As they get seated, he tells himself that someone else must have left them here by accident, but Kubo interrupts his thoughts by asking if he's ever received chocolates before. Kubo says no, which makes her super happy, and she points out that someone left chocolates in his desk. She also says the girl who left them put a ton of effort into making them, insisting that he enjoys them. Shiriishi believes they're not for him, but she assures him that they are before leaving the classroom. She then stands by the door, and when he asks himself who left these here, she decides to let him figure it out on his own. A day prior, she came home with a ton of stuff, and Akina asked what she was up to. She said she was going to make chocolates, but Akina joked about him burning pancakes and failing to distinguish lettuce from cabbage. Kubo ignored her and began baking, but she made something so horrendous that the animators had to censor it out. After tasting it, Akina suggested she get some pre-made chocolates, but she refused and tried again, which made Akina realize she's desperate to get her V-card swiped. Even though Kubo refused to admit it, Akina could sense it and decided to help her. Kubo was hesitant at first, but since Akina is a genius at this stuff, she reluctantly accepted her help. After some effort, they managed to bake some cookies, but Kubo was sad because hers were a little deformed. Akina ate one and said hers tasted even better because she made them with love, which helped Kubo build up confidence. She then packed them up and chose the best one for Shiriishi. Later, she hesitantly thanked Akina for the help, and Akina couldn't help gushing over how cute her little sister was. She then asked who would get the heart-shaped cookie, but Kubo didn't tell her. That night, Shiriishi tasted that cookie, still unsure of who gave it to him. Another peaceful day in school, Shiriishi enjoys the calm of lunch break, explaining how his invisibility allows him to enjoy his meal anywhere he wants. Usually, he eats in the music room or science lab, but since the weather is nice today, he decides to eat outside. After some searching, he finally finds a quiet spot to eat lunch, only for Kubo to show up. She wants to eat with him, and when he asks where her friends are, she says they're attending club and council meetings. As she begins eating, Shiriishi sits there like a statue until she tells him to eat. The guy then opens up his lunchbox, and Kubo gets emotional seeing his rolled omelets and octopus sausages. Shiriishi quietly asks if she'd like some, and she says yes while she looks at him with glittery eyes. She then suggests they trade rolled omelets and wants to feed him with her own hands, but Shiriishi snatches it from her hand, which annoys her. The guy then gives her his own omelette, but unlike her, she grabs his hand and bites on it, much to his shock. She looks at him like he just made her sip that forbidden mayonnaise, and even though it tastes like pineapples, she pretends to like it. Shiriishi is so shocked that his saturation hits 0, and he tries his best to stay composed. He then tries one of her omelets and says they are good, which makes her super happy because she made them herself. She then quickly admits she lied and judges from his reaction that he would have liked it more if she had actually made them. She then comes in front of him, sits on his toes, and promises to cook something next time if he agrees to have lunch with her. After he agrees, she steals his octopus sausage and asks what kind of food he likes. Shiriishi says he likes Hamburg steak, and Kubo replies that she likes stew before sitting beside him. As he continues to eat, Shiriishi thinks to himself how he's never had lunch with anyone before, all while she watches him like your mum watches Bixie. After school, she goes to a restaurant with her friends, who comment that she's gotten super cute recently. Tara asks if she's on that sausage-only diet, but Kuda believes she's yet to fall in love. Tara then starts telling her own sob story, revealing how her first love was her dad, and she wanted to marry him when she was in first grade. The girls then ask Kubo if she's interested in anyone, a person she wants to talk with all day, which makes her eyes pop. They insist she tell them, so Kubo admits she's interested in Shiriishi, mainly due to his invisibility. While Kudo is understanding of her decision, Tara, on the other hand, is traumatized because she thinks he's too mid for Kubo. When she starts starts dissing the guy. Kubo puts a finger on her lips and sternly tells her not to badmouth Shiriishi because he's more than what he appears to be. Tara starts crying and apologizes for it, but Kubo gently pats her head and tells her it's okay. Kudo then asks her what she likes about Shiriishi, but she refuses to tell them, which piques Kudo's interest. She asks how Kubo would feel if the guy was seen rizzing up other girls, which causes her to fall into despair. The girls notice this and find it cute how Kubo is acting possessive of Shiriishi. The next day, Shiriishi is super early to school and wonders if he'll be the first one in class. As he enters, he finds all the seats empty, but then sees Kubo sitting on her toes by the door. He asks why she's so early, and she replies that she wanted to be the first one in class for some reason. He notices that she's listening to music and apologizes for disturbing her, but she plugs the hands-free into his ear so they can listen together. She also tells him to scoot over so they can sit in the same chair, and the two listen to music together. After the song ends, she asks him to plug it into his phone so she can listen to his favorite songs as well. Shiriishi is hesitant because he only has songs from anime and video games, but she insists that he let her hear them. He then plays a song, and it is from the anime adaptation of the manga she borrowed. She says she really liked the manga, and Shiriishi says the producers are making a film adaptation, which he's super hyped for. He then starts yapping about the show, and Kubo listens to him with a smile on her face. That night, she comes home and watches the anime, and Akina can immediately tell that she's doing it to get laid. Meanwhile, Shiriishi realizes that the white day is coming soon, so he visits a bakery the next day to return the gift. He then suddenly trips, which causes the others to notice him, which also helps him buy the gift. Later, he brings the gift to class, but he still doesn't know who gave her that cookie. He asks Kubo to come outside because he wants to talk, and it surprises her because he never initiates a conversation. He then hands her the bag of sweets he bought and tells her to give them to someone, which visibly hurts her. However, she keeps her smile up and asks who is this for. Shiriishi tells her this is a return gift for the person who gave him that delicious cookie, but he doesn't know where it came from. She seems to know who that person was, so he asks her to deliver this gift. Kubo then turns around to hide the smile on her face and asks how many gifts he received. When he says only one, this makes all her worries vanish. She then says he didn't need to bring her out here just to hand her the gift, and even though Shiriishi knows no one notices him, he still wanted to do it outside of class. Kubo then says she was under the impression that he was going to ask her out, and the guy gets so nervous that he starts acting like a glitched empty. Kubo then promises to deliver his gift, and Shiriishi hopes whoever the person is likes it. Kubo tells him not to worry because she likes sweets, but he still can't understand that the cookie came from her. He asks her who gave him the cookie, and Kubo asks if he'd like it if it came from her. Shiriishi nervously says anyone would be lucky to get a gift from her, but Kubo starts walking back to class without saying much. He asks again, but Kubo says she's said enough and he should figure the rest on his own. She then walks back to class with a noticeable smile on her face. Later, Kubo notices him sitting alone as usual when Tara runs into her and asks if she's seen Shiriishi because she wants to have good luck. Kubo says she hasn't, which confuses Shiriishi because she saw her staring at him moments ago. She then walks up to him, places her hand on his head, and tells him that he's got bad hair, and she kept her lips sealed because she didn't want others to see him in this state. Shiriishi immediately leaves to fix them, and Kubo starts gushing about how cute he acts around her. On the weekend, Shiriishi heads to the store where he drops his student ID again, but the girl who picks it up doesn't see him at all. Later, he drops his handkerchief on the sidewalk, and a girl hands it to him, which surprises him because more people have started to notice him lately. He then realizes the girl looks a lot like someone he knows, but before he can figure it out, Akina shows up behind her. She immediately recognizes him as the creepy boy who was watching Korn in the bookstore and asks if Kubo returned his student ID. Shiriishi remembers Kubo telling him that her sister found the ID, which leads him to believe Akina is her sister. Akina confirms his suspicion and then introduces the girl as her cousin Saki. Only then does the guy realize that Seki looks like a mini Kubo, and Akina admits she looks exactly like her. Saki is so impressed by Kubo that she goes out of her way to resemble her and wants to grow her hair out just like her. Akina then shows him a picture of Kubo from some years ago, and Saki asks her if she will ever become as cute as Kubo. Akina asks Shiriishi to answer her, and the guy hesitantly tells her that she looks just like her. To reward her, she makes him exchange contact info with him so she can send him Kubo's picture. After Akina returns home, she tells Kubo that she ran into Shiriishi, the gooner, which piques her interest. She asks if Shiriishi said anything, and Saki tells her he said she'll one day become just as cute as Kubo. Akina starts to tease Kubo, and even reveals she invited Shiriishi over, only to learn that he's already visited once. Meanwhile, Shiriishi is having dinner with his family, and his mother tells him to get good grades, or she'll take away his console. The next day, Shiriishi recalls how he once dropped an eraser during the exam and couldn't get the teacher's attention, so now he brings 10 erasers with him to the exam room. That day, he notices that a lot of people are studying in class, but that's a dream for him cause he's got no friends like y'all. He then heads to the library to study alone, but Kubo shows up there as well. Noticing that he's studying, she asks if he needs any help as if she's gonna leave if he says no. She quickly leaves and returns the classes to cosplay as his teacher, and even though Shiriishi knows it'll benefit him, he can't help but wonder who he's going to become a source of amusement for her. After weighing his choices, he admits he can't get question 5 right, but Kubo notices that the ones he solved are also incorrect. This makes Shiriishi worry, so Kubo tells him to relax as she will never make fun of him for trying his best. She then spends the next hour teaching him maths, and Shiriishi realizes she's better than most teachers in his school. Kubo then praises him for doing well and tells him that she'll be here tomorrow if he needs her again. After she leaves, Shiriishi admits he's never studied with anyone before, but he's looking forward to seeing her tomorrow. However, the plot gods become blockers in his romance because he falls sick the very next day. This is the first time he's missed school in his entire life, but he knows it won't matter because no one gives two f's about him. After the class ends, the teacher tells the students that Shiriishi is on sick leave, which makes Kubo worry. Later, Tara and Kudo ask her if she noticed Shiriishi's absence, and she lies that it only occurred to her after the teacher announced it. She then writes a text asking Shiriishi if she can visit him, but doesn't send it out of hesitation. Her friends show up again, and Tara asks her to visit her if she ever gets sick, stating that a cutie like her playing nurse would definitely make her feel better. After the girls leave, she sits there for quite some time, thinking of a text that won't annoy Shiriishi. Eventually, she asks him if he's coming to school tomorrow, and Shiriishi replies that he's not sure. Just then, Seda runs into his room, jumps on his bed, and tries to snatch his phone, which accidentally sends an "I miss you" sticker to Kubo. She is about to send it right back, but Shiriishi quickly tells her that Seda was the one who sent it. Soon after, his mother drags Seda out of the room, but he gets a sticker from Kubo saying she feels lonely without him. She then says it was her sister who sent it, and her mind games make his temperature rise. After that, Kubo decides to head home when a cold wind blows her hair. The next day, Shiriishi arrives late but wonders if he can sneak in since no one notices him anyway. While he waits outside, Kubo exits the class, and he immediately notices that something is off about her. Kubo then gets dizzy and falls on top of him, and after spewing some nonsense, she reveals she's got a fever, so she's heading to the nurse's office. He asks her to take someone with her, but she says everyone is taking a quiz, and he should too. However, Shiriishi's desire to slap a kitty is higher than his desire to score a decent grade, so he decides to skip the quiz and take her to the nurse's office. This makes her cheer up, and she happily leans on his shoulder, saying she'll take him up on that offer. The guy then puts his hand around her, and the two walk to the nurse's office together. Since there's no nurse there, Shiriishi tucks her in bed, and she holds her hand before falling asleep. The nurse soon shows up and explains the situation, and she says she'll take it from here. As he walks back to class, Shiriishi admits that for the first time in his life, he feels like a main character. With the third semester coming to a close, Shiriishi is internally happy because he managed to pass the finals without tanking his grades. Kudo noticed that he looked a little more energetic today, and the guy thanks her for tutoring him for the finals. Kubo is excited to study with him again, but Shiriishi is a little sad because they'll most likely be separated at the start of the new semester. The two then notice the rain and head to the locker room, where Kubo says she's lucky because she brought an umbrella. Shiriishi didn't bring one, and Kubo suggests they do an experiment where they use the same umbrella to see if others noticed him or not. Despite Kubo being super enthusiastic about it, Shiriishi turns her down, so she hands him her own umbrella while she walks in the rain. However, Shiriishi's inner simp pushes him to join her, and the two eventually walk home together. On the way, Shiriishi suddenly freezes when he realizes that Kubo camouflaged it as an experiment when in reality, she just wanted to share an umbrella with him like couples. The guy begins sweating and suggests they take a quieter street so no one sees them together. Once they cross it, Kubo acts disappointed because they didn't run into each other, while Shiriishi is relieved. Kubo finds it amusing, clearly catching on that he chose that route on purpose. As they keep walking together, Akina notices them heading toward the house and watches quietly. After handing her the umbrella, Shiriishi runs home, and his mother asks him why he's a little soaked, but he heads to his room without saying much. Meanwhile, Akina welcomes Kubo home and asks if she's free on Saturday because Seki wants to hang out again. On Saturday, Shiriishi is out touching grass when he notices Saki leaving the store carrying a lot of bags. He walks up to her and offers to help, but Saki says she can carry it by himself. This reminds Shiriishi of Sita, who's also dead set on carrying the bags. Saki then admits she's carrying them on her own, so she gets praise from Kubo, but he notices the mark on her hands and tells her that Kubo will be more worried than happy if she sees her in this state. She then hands him the bags, and Shiriishi promises to hand them back to her once they reach Kubo's place. On the way, she explains she learned to make meat and potato stew and wanted to make it for Kubo. Even though she brought extra ingredients, she couldn't find sake and mirin, so Shiriishi decides to ask Kubo if they have some at home. Meanwhile, Kubo is panicking because Saki is late and rushes out to look for her. That's when she gets the text from Shiriishi, and even though she is confused, she lets him know that they have the ingredients. Saki then asks how close he is to Kubo, and the guy says they're just classmates, which makes her happy. She then flexes her own closeness with Kubo, stating how they are on a first-name basis, unlike him. Shiriishi says he knows her first name too, so Saki insists he call her by it. Before he can process it, Kubo comes running in and is relieved to find Saki in one piece. Saki jokes that he doesn't know Kubo's first name, much to her shock. However, Shiriishi claims he does know, so she asks him to say it. He then hesitantly calls her Nagiza, and it makes her eyes light up. She then tells Saki that Shiriishi's first name is Hunta, and the two part ways from there. However, Saki notices Kubo blushing and realizes Shiriishi lied about just being classmates with her. At the start of the pollen season, Shiriishi sneezes in class and catches everyone's attention. During the lecture, he gets bored and disassembles the ball pen so he can play with the spring. However, he accidentally drops it, and while searching, he notices Kubo looking at him all weird. She asks him what he's doing, and he explains that he lost his ballpoint spring. Just then, the teacher asks the class to get their red pens out, which puts him in a predicament. However, Kubo says she has an extra pen that he borrows, only to discover that it's super cute. She then pulls out her own pen, which looks exactly the same, and says they have matching pens now. As the teacher asks them to write some questions, Kubo gets nervous seeing Shiriishi hold her pen. After class, she gives him refill cartridges so he can use it forever, which she discovered only after buying a second pen. After class, the boys fret over how it's their last day in this class, but Shiriishi claims it makes no difference to him since he's a lonely virgin anyway. Without saying much, he exits the class, but Kubo notices him leave. That night, Hugo invites Tara and Kudo for a sleepover, and Tara proudly declares that she failed in one subject, which they find odd. Turns out, she fails multiple exams at a time, and failing only one is an achievement for her. After that, the girls eat snacks and enjoy a good time till the clock strikes midnight. While setting up the mattress, the girls discuss how they're gonna be stuck in years now, but the mood shifts when they realize they won't be in the same class from now on. Tara starts panicking and jumps on top of the others, expressing how much she will miss them if they don't end up in the same class again. She frantically says how she wants to have trips, spots, and festivals with them, which reminds Kubo of Shiriishi, who might also end up in a different class. Judging from her reaction, Tara asks if she also wants Shiriishi in the same class as her, since she is interested in him. Even though Kubo denies it, it is obvious from her expression that she really wants him to be in her class. Embarrassed, Kubo decides to sleep early, but Tara refuses to let her sleep. Soon after, Tara is the first one to doze off, so Kudo and Kubo decide to sleep on the futon. Kubo whispers that she placed second this time in the finals, and Kudo head-pats him, much to her delight. After they fall asleep, Tara wakes up and notices them sleeping on the futon. She quietly joins them, hoping they end up in the same class together. On the weekend, Shiriishi's mother asks him to get some groceries, and he takes Sita along with him. On the way, he asks Shiriishi to buy him chocolate and gets all sad when he says no. Meanwhile, Saki is with the Kubo sisters and says she's super happy because she'll be going on a picnic with Kubo tomorrow. Akina then suggests they make lunch together, but Kubo is hesitant because she sucks at it. Saki comforts her, saying she'll cook for her and it'll make her happy if she eats the food she makes. Akina tries acting cute as well, but loses all aura because they leave her behind. Later, they head to the store where Kubo spots something in the other aisle and heads there. Saki goes after her, and Akina notices that she's actually heading there to meet Shiriishi. Meanwhile, Shiriishi and Sita are buying potatoes when Kubo suddenly hugs him from behind and shocks him. As she begins chatting, Saki quickly joins them, and even though she's upset at first, she notices that Sita has taken a liking to her, which lifts her spirits. When Sita hides behind Shiriishi, she leans in and says hello, which makes the little guy blush. He then gives her a rock, and Shiriishi points out that it's Sita's favorite rock. Just then, they notice Akina watching them like a creep who joins them soon and invites Shiriishi and Sita to their picnic. Saki is initially hesitant, but when Sita says he wants to play with her, she hesitantly agrees. Kubo agrees as well, and Akina says if she chops veggies well enough, she might end up chopping bedsheets with Shiriishi later. The next day, Kubo starts preparing ingredients on her own but ends up ruining the onion while Akina and Saki watch in secrecy. Akina reveals she's trying to make Hamburg steak for lunch, so Saki dresses up and decides to help her. She shows her how to peel onions, but Kubo is so terrible at it that she ends up cutting her own finger. After she puts on the band-aid, she's ready to try again, but Saki is worried she'll hurt herself again. She suggests she cook it alone, and Kubo reluctantly agrees. While she cowers in misery, Akina returns to the kitchen and assures Saki that it is not her fault and it's important to learn from one's mistakes. She then gives a speech about never giving up and asks Saki to give Kubo another chance. Kubo gets motivated upon hearing this and gently says that she will make the steak herself, despite everything. Seeing her resolve, Saki allows her to join, and the two spend the next few hours perfecting the recipe. Eventually they get it right, and Kubo is super happy about it. Akina then asks why she wanted to make Hamburg steak so badly, and even though Kubo says she was just in the mood, they can tell it's her ticket to getting laid. Saki then asks for a taste, and Akina can tell she's doing it, so she can have the first bite. Later, the group gets together and notices how the cherry blossoms are in full bloom. As they continue walking, Kubo hears Shiriishi's tummy growl, and he apologizes, saying he didn't have breakfast. She then asks if he's excited to have the lunch she made, and the guy hesitantly says yes. Later, they find a spot to set up, and Shiriishi is shocked at how good the food looks. He then notices that they've made Hamburg steak too, but since it's placed away from him, he decides to eat something else first. However, Kubo hands him the piece with a smile, and when he says it's delicious, her eyes immediately light up. Meanwhile, Akina is drunk and blurts out that they are such cute lovebirds. She then sits between them and starts saying embarrassing things, which annoys both Kubo and Saki. Akina doesn't stop and begins flirting with Shiriishi, which upsets Kubo so much that she leaves to cool off. Shiriishi and Sita follow her, and while Shiriishi is scared to approach her, Sita insists they make up right now. The guy then approaches her and apologizes, but she says it's not his fault and continues walking, which makes him depressed. Sita then stops her and points at Shiriishi, so she walks back and apologizes for how she acted earlier. Shiriishi apologizes too, even though she doesn't know why she's upset, and he feels bad for being so dense about everything. After the two make up, Sita gets excited and asks them to hold hands. Shiriishi is hesitant, but Kubo finds a shortcut by having Sita hold their hands. On the first day of his second year in school, Shiriishi follows the same routine as always, and even when he's moved up a grade, he's still invisible to others. He also mentions how others might feel nervous about moving to a new class, but it doesn't matter for him because he's got zero chance of getting a shoddy anyway. At the notice board, he sees that he's enrolled in class 2-1, and when he steps inside, Kudo tells him he's seated in the back by the window. Turns out she's in the same class as him, and not just her, but Tara and Kudo are also there, much to their delight. After Shiriishi gets to his seat, he notices the seat next to him has a bunny pouch. Just then, Kudo asks him to guess where her seat is, but he has no idea. She gives him a hint that it's the one with the pouch, making him realize they're neighbors again. After covering his seat in the curtains, she also reveals that third years don't have a class change, which means they are going to be together since graduation. She then catches him looking at the sky, and when he says it looks pretty, she opens the window so he can have a better view. After that, she looks at him with a bright smile and says they'll have a lot of fun this year, which catches him off guard because his idea of fun is gooning to thick-toed goth girls. After class, Kubo and her friends celebrate being in the same class and look forward to doing everything together. Tara and Kudo wonder where Shiriishi went and are shocked to learn that he's in the same class as well. In the evening, Kubo returns home and finds Akina watching brain rot reels in the living room. She asks her about her day, and Kubo says she's happy because her friends are in the same class as her. Akina then asks about Shiriishi, but Kubo pretends not to care much, even though she's dying to jump on his pogo stick. The next day, the teacher announces that it's time to choose student committees, and Kubo immediately turns to Shiriishi to ask which one he'll choose. He says he isn't interested in any, but Kubo knows he was in the environmental committee and took care of the flowers. Turns out people thought no one was taking care of the flowers, and it became a shock because they were always watered and in good health. Shiriishi admits it's a drag to look after them, but he did feel content when the flowers bloomed. Since he's always ignored like a middle child, it made him happy that everyone noticed and admired his work. Just then, the teacher asks who wants to be in the environmental committee, and no one seems to be up for the job, which makes the old man sad. However, Kubo raises her hand, and he comes running towards her to thank her. He also suggests that more people take up this job, so Kubo tells the teacher that Shiriishi would also like to join. The teacher comes back and gets excited to see him because he did a fantastic job last year too. Shiriishi doesn't understand why she wanted to join, but what he doesn't know is that she watched him take care of flowers every single day and secretly admired him. When some girls began complimenting the flowers, he was standing beside them with a smile on his face, which made her really happy. She then says she has no experience with flowers, so he must become her senpai and teach her the basics. Later, Shiriishi hears some guys gossiping about him, and they think he joined that committee because he wants Kubo to give him sloppy toppies. Kubo hears this too and apologizes because it is the other way around. Despite all the gossip, a guy named Sudo believes that Shiriishi joined only because he was in it last year too. Sudo was on the same committee too, but his flowers died even when he thought he took good care of them. Kubo is listening carefully and asks Shiriishi if he's ever talked to Sudo. The guy says no, so she ends the conversation and heads to their next class. During the science lab, Shiriishi learns that both Kubo and Sundu are in his group. He then notices Sundu forgot his eraser at home, and since he has 5 in his pouch, he contemplates whether he should help him or not. While he's struggling, Kubo watches him closely and is amused to see him in this state. Then suddenly, she speaks out loud that Shiriishi has so many erasers in his pouch, which makes Sudo chuckle. He then asks Shiriishi to lend him one, and after he does, Sudo says he's been meaning to talk to him. Turns out, he also noticed that Shiriishi's flower beds came out perfectly, so he wants his advice on the matter. He reveals he has been looking for him for months, but every time he asks someone, no one seemed to know where he was. He then starts joking around about 5 erasers, and Shiriishi thanks Kubo later because this is the first time he's enjoyed talking with anyone other than her. Hearing this, Kubo suddenly runs off because hearing that he enjoys talking to her caught her off guard. As Shiriishi walks home, he stops by a vending machine to get a drink when he notices a solo water bottle. He compares the water bottle to himself because they both get neglected, then proceeds to get himself a lemon-flavored youth drink. Just before he presses the button, Kubo startles him and he accidentally buys water. Kubo apologizes for her actions, and as the two begin walking together, she asks him what flavor his youth would be. With a personality so boring it makes One Piece seem interesting. He says he's like water, clear, tasteless, and easy to forget. However, Kubo looks at him with a smile and tells him he can be anything he wants since that's one of the properties of water, which makes him feel a little less irrelevant. She then wonders what it'll be like to have a lemon-flavored youth, and Shiriishi it'll be like having a personality opposite of his. Kubo explains how someone with social skills who enjoys gatherings might fit the role, but Shiriishi says he doesn't even have friends. Kubo then asks him what about her, and when he asks if they are friends, it makes her a little upset. He then asks if he can consider her his friend, but in Kubo's mind, they're already married with 2 kids. This makes the guy light up, and he says it's fulfilling before walking off. Despite still being upset, Kubo joins him and is happy that he considers her a friend. The next day in school, Kubo asks Shiriishi to have a staring contest with her and gets super happy when he agrees. As the game starts, he starts making funny faces to throw her off, but she reminds him that it's not a you laugh you lose, but rather a don't look away type of game. She then says she's never looked into his eyes for this long before, which causes him to blush and look away. For punishment, she suggests he say good morning to her first thing tomorrow, and Shiriishi hesitantly agrees. Later, while Shiriishi is enjoying the spring air, he gets covered in chalk thanks to his silly classmates. After he's done cleaning up, Kubo shows up behind him and tells him there's more chalk on him. She then gets up close to his face and wipes it with her own hands, which makes the guy shake. She comments that his hair is thicker than she thought and asks if he wants to touch hers for comparison. Even when he says no, she turns around and asks him to feel them. Shiriishi reluctantly touches them, which makes Kubo feel unspeakable things in her loins. She then asks what kind of hairstyles he likes on girls, and he says anything that fits. Kubo then lists all the hairstyles she's had and asks which one he liked the most, but Shiriishi instead says many guys like ponytails. Despite his reluctance to answer, she makes him admit that he likes them too, and decides to do a ponytail so he can pull it when he's giving her back shots. In class, the teacher asks the student to bring their track suits for tomorrow's physical exam, and Shiriishi hopes he's grown a few inches in the right areas. Just then, Kubo approaches and asks if he's gotten taller, which surprises him because no one outside his family ever noticed it. She then asks if she's grown as well, but Shiriishi notices she's flatter than a pancake. Later, she suggests they compare heights because she thinks she's now taller than him, but Shiriishi doesn't see a world where that happens. Kubo then makes him stand against the wall to fix his beta posture and places the ruler on top of his head. She then makes him hold the ruler and gets under it, making it seem like he's rizzing her up. The guy runs away faster than your dad after you were born, not realizing that he took Kubo's ruler with him. He says he'll give it back, but Kubo's got her eyes on something that measures more than inches. The next day, while she waits for her friends at the park, Shiriishi appears and says good morning to her. It takes her a few seconds to realize he said it because he lost the staring contest, but it makes her happy nonetheless. He also returns her ruler, and when her friends show up, they find her smiling widely, which piques their curiosity. In class, Shiriishi changes into the tracksuit and notices how it fits him better since he's grown taller. Kubo appears and correctly guesses what he's thinking, much to his shock. She then asks for his jacket to determine who's taller since he ran away like a wuss last time, and the guy reluctantly agrees. After she puts it on, she admits he's a little taller than her, but then runs off with his jacket, leaving him confused. Later, as Tara frets over gaining a few pounds, she praises Kubo for being lean, but Kubo is a little sad because she can't gain weight in the right areas. Tara also notices that she's wearing a loose jacket today, and Kubo lies that it belongs to her sister. Kudo, however, suspects something but decides not to meddle. On the weekend, Akina wakes up to find Kubo reading her magazine in the living room. She comments that her little sister is all grown up and it's time for her to get clapped, but Kubo gets annoyed and leaves. Later that day, Akina finds Shiriishi hiding from something and approaches him. He reveals he's watching over Sita, who is running his first errand by himself. Akina questions why he needs to hide since he's already invisible, but Shiriishi explains that people who spend a lot of time with him notice him more easily than others. The two begin walking, and Akina recalls following Kubo the exact same way some years ago. He then asks why she's here, and she reveals she wants to do some shopping at the same store. Inside, they secretly watch him buying eggs and checking out at the counter, and Shiriishi is impressed at his accomplishment. After that, they wait for him outside their home, and Sita soon shows up, proudly declaring that he brought eggs on his own. Akina starts cuddling him up because it reminds her of Kubo's first errand, who made it out of the store but tripped on her way back. When she met up with Akina, she couldn't stop crying until she patted her head and promised to make her a tasty omelette. Akina believes Kubo has always been easygoing and would stop crying if she patted her head even today. She even advises Shiriishi to be there for her if she cries, and it's clear from the look in her eyes that she loves Kubo a lot. Heading home, Akina tells Kubo about her encounter and jokes about her breaking eggs on her first errand. Kubo pouts, saying she's not that clumsy girl anymore, so Akina pats her head to make her feel better. She also says these head pats will feel even better if they came from her crush, which makes her think of Shiriishi immediately. Later, Shiriishi gets excited because the film adaptation of his favorite manga is coming out on Friday. Just then, Kubo shows up and asks why he's in a good mood, so he tells her about the film. Kubo learns it's the same manga she borrowed from him, and since she enjoyed it a lot, she suggests they go to the movies together. Later, he waits for her outside the train station, and she shows up looking like a cutie. As they walk to the train, she says she put her hair in a ponytail today, and Shiriishi says it looks good, which makes her happy. Once they board the train, Kubo gets a little nervous because there are too many people around, and she doesn't have a strap to hold on to. Shiriishi offers to switch places with her, but she instead holds onto his bag for support. When the train arrives at the next stop, a bunch of people swarm in and push Shiriishi into Kubo. The guy is unable to move, but Kubo notices that he's trying super hard not to touch her. As more guys keep bumping into him, it becomes even harder for him to keep his distance. Eventually, they get off the train and walk to the movies, where a couple of guys approach Kubo in hopes of getting a quick sloppy toppy. Shiriishi watches the scene unfold and notices that she's uncomfortable, so he decides to introduce himself to the boys. They initially get startled and then ask if he's her boyfriend, but before he can say no, Kubo pitches in and says yes. As soon as they hear this, they back off and root for him to get laid before leaving. Afterwards, Kubo clings to Shiriishi and thanks him for protecting her. Later, they arrive at the theater only to learn that there are only a few seats left, and none are next to each other. Shiriishi asks Kubo which seat she wants, but she suggests waiting for the next show, which is at 4 p.m. Shiriishi worries they'll be home late, but for Kubo, it's more time to spend with him. She also tells him that they should sit together during the movies because that's the whole reason they came together. She's also excited because he'll walk her home, but Shiriishi says he was going to do that anyway, which catches her off guard. Kubo is excited to go to several places with him before the movie starts, so after picking seats, they head to a cafe together. There, Kubo sees a couple sipping from the same drink and wants to order one too, but Shiriishi says no. Once they get the menu, Shiriishi says he'll get coffee, and Kubo happily decides the same. She reveals she's never had coffee because her friend saves for older people, so Shiriishi says she should order apple juice, which annoys her. She then decides to order coffee anyway, and once it arrives, she looks at it like she's discovered the purpose of life. Shiriishi then asks if she needs sugar and cream, but she says she'll have it black because that sounds more grown up. She's excited to try, but all that excitement vanishes after she takes one sip of it. Shiriishi offers her sugar and cream, but she refuses to take any because he's also having it black. Hearing this, Shiriishi gets to get sugar and cream for himself, so Kubo would copy him and won't have to suffer from the bitter taste. She then happily drinks the coffee, admitting that she can't be a grown-up in one day, but she's okay with taking it one step at a time. Later, they head to the arcade where Shiriishi reveals he once came with Sita, but they were unable to win a prize. Kubo ends up winning on her first try and gives it to Shiriishi so he can give it to Sita. As they look for more stuff, he stops to look at an eraser, commenting that one can never have too many of them. Since his choice is way too generic, Kubo hands him one shaped as a bunny, and he reluctantly buys it. At a clothing store, Kubo notices that it's almost time for the movie, so they rush back to the theater and make it just in time. As the movie starts, Kubo notices that the excitement on Shiriishi's face is visible, which is unusual for his otherwise stoic face. After it ends, Kubo points out to Shiriishi that his facial expressions changed a lot during the movie, which was a new experience for her. Shiriishi explains that he usually keeps a straight face because people don't talk to him often, and it'll be weird if he's smiling at nothing. Kubo says he doesn't have to worry about that with her because she can read his face easily. They two then take the train, and Shiriishi walks her home. Once there, she gently asks him what he thinks of today, and Shiriishi admits it was the most fun he had in a long time. Kubo excitedly says she had fun too, and they should hang out more, and they pinky promise to do that more often from now on. Walking back, Shiriishi reflects on his easy-to-read face and wonders if Kubo was able to tell what he was thinking during some special moments. The next day, after class, Kubo asks him if he believes in horoscopes because she saw it on tab yesterday. Shiriishi believes such stuff should be taken with a grain of salt, but Kubo seems pretty into it. She then decides to give him a psychological test, and he reluctantly agrees. She then asks him to imagine what he'd be shouting in a dream, and after some thinking, he comes up with yodel-a-hee-hoo. She imagines him saying those words when followed by a bear, which makes her laugh. Continuing the test, she asks him to imagine flowers blooming and how many he can see, and Shiriishi says only one flower. Turns out the number of flowers is equal to the number of shotties Shiriishi will clap, which concerns Kubo. She then asks him to look up for a psychological test on his phone, and he finds a question that asks them to imagine kittens in a room. Shiriishi imagines two, but Kubo imagines dozens of them. However, the number of kittens equates to the number of kids they'd want to have, much to their disbelief. After that, Kubo leaves early, claiming she has to be home early when in reality, she is embarrassed about her answer. At home, Kubo finds Akina drinking coffee and asks for some, but Akina says she's not old enough for it. However, Kubo tells her she had a whole cup of coffee, much to her surprise. She then asks her to tell the story, and she tells her it happened when she went out with Shiriishi last week. That day, Kubo was putting a lot of effort into her outfit, and when Akina offered to fix her hair, she happily agreed, when she usually says no. She then asked Akina if she looked okay, and Akina couldn't help but find her super cute. At present, Akina is super happy to see her sister enjoy grown-up things, but it also makes her feel lonely because she was this big. Akina recalls how she used to imitate her when she was young, and Kubo admits she still imitates her, and she wanted to drink coffee because she drinks it. A few days later, it is Shiriishi's birthday, but no one knows about it, so it's a normal day for him. Just then, his tummy starts growling and he grabs everyone's attention. Kubo finds it amusing and gives him chocolate so it doesn't happen again. He then sees that she's written happy birthday on the packet, and she reveals she saw it on his student ID. She gives him another chocolate that says look in your desk, and he finds a wrapped gift inside. Upon opening it, he finds a plushie which Kubo got because it looks just as ugly as him. Shiriishi thanks her with a gentle smile and then asks for her birthday. She then forces him to eat the chocolate and promises to give him a gift next year as well. Shiriishi gets so overwhelmed that he puts his head down, mainly because he doesn't want her to see the smile on his face. As he leaves the class, people around him keep ignoring him as usual, and he questions himself why Kubo is the only one who can spot him. Turns out, Kubo noticed Shiriishi for the first time when his face was edited into the yearbook. Tara explained the whole invisible situation to her, and she started wondering if she'd be able to spot him normally. On the first day of school, Kubo noticed him sitting by himself, and for her, he was surprisingly easy to spot. Over the next few days, she observed him from a distance and realized he was, in fact, invisible to most people. She also noticed that his face had no expressions, and that daily stalking made her more curious about him. Then one day, she learned that the seats were going to change and secretly wished she had gotten a seat next to Shiriishi. By the miracle of plot gods, she got the back seat alongside Shiriishi, which gave her a chance to strike up a conversation with him. When she first said hi, Shiriishi could not believe his senses and explained how he never expected anyone to talk to him. Seeing him this nervous made her want to laugh, but she held it back because she didn't want to make him uncomfortable. When she learned that she's the first one who's talked to him, it made her really happy, and she decided to talk to him every day from that day onwards. At present, Shiriishi notices her standing at the class window, and she happily tells him that she will see him tomorrow. That's it for this recap. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel for more. If you made it to the end, prove it by commenting "I love busty goth girls."